This is orange juice on the rocks. I required my go-to beverage before this review. 2 seconds. Damn, that's good. Tomorrowland. In my opinion, it's okay. The story follows teen misfit Casey Newton after being given a pin that transports her to a field leading to a mysterious world. She finds herself in the company of a small girl called Athena. Together, they bring former inventor Frank Walker out of his house in the hopes of traveling back to Tomorrowland, where a machine Frank built requires fixing. Athena believes Casey can fix it. This film comes from Brad Bird, the director of Mission Impossible: Ghost Protocol. This is his second live-action film. With it, he is tackling concepts like opportunity, possibility, inspiration, and innovation, all very rich concepts. The hard part is implementing them in a way that works towards the story's advantage. What I liked most about this movie was the beginning, specifically a segment where we see a young Frank showing off his passion project, a jetpack. And I like that part because it shows a kid with raw ambition and relentless passion. He will not take no for an answer, and that's inspiring. I also like the story told by Casey to her father concerning the two dogs. It's a very powerful story and one that can be applied to everyday life by you and me. It is relatable. Lastly, I was impressed by the design and functions of Frank's house. It's a very cool house and is appropriate for his character. Where I think the film could have improved is the story, the structure, the wheelworks of Tomorrowland, obstacles, and character emphasis. And that leads me to a sidebar story. Please bear with me. I saw this at my usual IMAX theater, AMC Metreon 16 in San Francisco. It's home for me. I saw this in IMAX because that is my preference whenever it's an option, but it actually turned into one of the few times where I walked out of the theater and thought to myself, if I had not seen this in IMAX, if I had seen this in a regular theater, it would have been fine. I do not regret paying extra, but I don't think you need to see this in IMAX or even XD to really enjoy it. When it ended, I went to my go-to hangout spot so I could be alone to write, to organize the madness of this movie. And over the course of an hour, basically an hour, I hand wrote 4 pages, front and back, detailing characters and plot. I also posed questions. Among all my notes, I wrote down a very important question. Of all the characters in this movie, whose story has the most dramatic potential? Not Casey, aka our main character. And it's frustrating because in the beginning we are forced to watch our 2 main characters as they dilly-dally whilst trying to figure out what the writer is supposed to figure out, how to tell the story. It is so boring and completely unnecessary. Pick a point of view you think we the audience will find engaging and stick with it. But since this film does not know whom we should follow, we get a segment where we follow Frank as a child, the one I mentioned before. Once the film gets bored with that, we switch to Casey. Okay, why are we following Casey when this is clearly Frank's story? I mean, golden opportunity here. The title card for this movie could have come up right after Frank's childhood story, and it would have been so perfect. This leads me to the story. This is a kind of get the band back together story, and I don't understand why. We should have watched Frank grow up in Tomorrowland, so we could have seen him learn and progress as an inventor. That way, we could see what led to him building the machine that got him in trouble. Because the story as it is now has the handicap of requiring a foil character to ask a horde of questions to get characters to dish out a horde of information. Believe me, you fans of expositional dialogue will love this movie. Regarding the wheelworks of Tomorrowland, there's a couple things. The first is how it works. It's pitched as a place for talented people to come and create what they want without distraction, but beyond that, the world is never explained. We don't meet other inventors, and the few inventions we see besides the jetpack, like the robot, only raise more questions like, what is the purpose of the robot, and how much free reign do the people there have, and what kinds of tools are at their disposal. The second is the location relationship between where a person with the pin is when they interact with it and where they end up by default in Tomorrowland. When Casey makes contact with her pin, she finds herself in a field with Tomorrowland visible but very far away. We then learn from her trying to walk towards Tomorrowland that her movement is restricted by the environment she is in the real world. Why this is so is never brought up. It's really hard to understand an idea like that when it's not fleshed out. When it comes to the structure, there's plenty of combinations for how this story could have played out, and within that, how characters could have related to one another. After much thought, I think the route this film took turned the structure into an unstable Jenga tower. Last but not least, one of the more lackluster and confusing elements is the lack of obstacles our characters face when traveling back to Tomorrowland. It's a lot more straightforward than I was expecting. The only real obstacle is the relationship between Frank and Athena, and to be frank, pun intended, their banter is boring. Overall, I think the Tomorrowland concept would work best in the form of a TV show, because there are way too many ideas here that require attention. And when you're working within a 2-hour time limit, you really cannot expect your audience to settle for tall buildings, bare futuristic interiors, and more expositional dialogue than Inception and Interstellar combined. With all that said, I give Tomorrowland 2.5 out of 5 stars. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. Have an awesome day. Damn it, now it's empty.